Hi, folks. Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Saturday Architecture. As architects and technologies, there is one challenge that we always face. We have great ideas, but it becomes harder to push through this idea, especially if the idea is very great or very innovative. Right? If it's a run of the mill thing, we get approvals and we get a go ahead. But we really want to try something very innovative, very different. It becomes very hard. And we work hard, collect more information, collect more data about it, and go with a stronger case. Nothing happens. Come back, do homework, add 10 more points, present it, and then it seems to be a point of no return. More and more data you're presenting, is all the effort that you're putting seems to be going down the black hole, and the people on the other side are not responding. Now, who are the people on the other side? They could be other team guys, right? Let's say you're developing one service and the other team is doing another service and you want help from them. Could be them. Peers. The other thing could be executive management, right? Who are not really technologists. They are not inspired by whatever you're telling. And you're wondering what's happening. I'm giving so much stories, so much of data to them. Why aren't they getting convinced? Customers, even bigger problem, right? You want to get a new, let's say you want to upsize a contract or you want to make something better, and then you kind of get confused. You know what, I'm trying to help you, and why aren't you agreeing to it? The worst case is your own reportees, your team members, right? You give them a grand vision and they give you this blank zombie look. You finish this whole thing, say, let's do this, and they'll be like, and I say, what's happening? Right? You want them to be inspired. You want them to say, come let's go do it, kind of a thing. So then I realized, when I was discussing with my co-founder Sukumar, he also works in the innovation, right? And this was kind of many years ago. What we realized is we just tell data without storyfying it. Now we have to use metaphors to storyfy a data. And the easiest example is one of the greatest storytellers in the technology world, Steve Jobs. Okay. So let's take something like, I am going to talk about battery capacity. So let's say I worked on a technical project and I have moved from a capability of, let's say, 3000 milliamperes to 7,900 milliamp, which means basically I have doubled battery size capacity. Now I go and talk to a common audience, right? Like, let's take your case itself. If I just say, as a person working in battery capacity, I have made it from, let's say, even 5,000 milliamperes to 7,000 milliamperes. It doesn't cause any feeling to you, right? Okay, as a battery designer, you did something, good job. But what Steve Jobs does is something very exceptional. What he says is, he didn't say we have increased the battery capacity from 3000 to 9,900. It's actually a one sentence. So he says, all of you have to fly long distance flights, and many of you have flown across the Pacific, and the entire 10 flying hours, you could actually watch videos without doing a recharge. Now, this was actually a one-line story, and which I think was absolutely brilliant, right? So he was able to, he didn't talk about battery life, we did great things about the battery, he storyfied that data. Now, as technologists, we will say, from nickel cadmium, I did this, we changed the capacitance on the battery, we changed this chemical composition, we have done this, I have designed the battery to be square, the capacitance was reduced. We go tell all these things, right? But that one line, that, for the 10 hours without getting bored, you can watch a movie. Now, that is storyfying a fact. Okay. So, this was kind of things which I think as architects or technologists, right? When I say technologists, I mean people who are really good in technology. I see a lot of them seem to be struggling with this. And I was just curious to see if what does this sound to you?
So Kumar, I think that is the way I see it. I was thinking of some questions which might be, and you can tell me if I got it wrong. So one of the things which the story has to do is to be related to me, right? It's not related to who is telling the story, right?
Yes.
You can tell your whole life experience and I still could not relate to it, and which is a story about something, right? But I think the important part of this storifying the data is it has to be about me. If you're trying to reach me, I have to be involved in that story somehow. Otherwise, yeah, it is just another story. I like watch a movie and forget about it, and that's it. It has no impact on me, right? So that is that there's something which you
Actually,
advise
you asked a
from
great
this?
question,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It brings to, in whether it's in movie taking or storytelling, right? There is one specific word called zeitgeist. Okay, so zeitgeist is what is relevant to the audience at a point in time. So zeitgeist, it has a contextual nature to it. It has a geography context, it has a time context, like that, right? So for example, there is a comedian called Vadivelu in South India.
Right.
Okay, he makes certain expressions. Now that is in the zeitgeist of people who are in Tamil Nadu or Tamil speaking folks, or people staying at home, okay, and trying to manage tasks at home and doing challenges at work. We see so much of memes floating around, like how people are cutting onions and taking a phone call and things like that. Okay, so that is what is in the current zeitgeist. So if I can kind of say something like, let's see, if you take the same battery story itself, if I wanted to talk about it in the current scenario, okay, so probably I can say that when your children are making noise and you want to continue your team, when you want to continue your team's meeting, you can go to the terrace without a power connection and finish your team call in peace.
Right.
So that same battery story, I've got it with the zeitgeist of what's happening today, right? So what you said is very true. I'm just expanding what you just said. From an individual, you get it to a context. It's not just an individual, it is also the context in which that person is there. So thanks for that question. I think zeitgeist is the key thing there. So when we convey facts, it has to apply to that zeitgeist there.
Right. So I read about this thing in change management. They have this specific term called "what's in it for me," right? So there's that WIFM. So if you want people to change their behavior or accept some new idea, they have to have this "what's in it for me," right? And I think that zeitgeist which you just talked about is somehow related to what's in it for me. Do you agree, or
it's correct, absolutely. Yeah. What's in it for me? There's a nuance there which I would bring out. It's like double clicking what you said. Now, what is in it for me is not an intellectual thing. I think that's where people make a mistake. It's not me thinking what you will think. Let me repeat that again. It's not me thinking what you are thinking. It is about me getting what you will be feeling.
Okay, so it's more about feeling, not about thinking. That I think that's what I got from your explanation. So how do you differentiate that? I think it's a tough thing to really get to a point where you can feel what other people feel. How do you actually do that? And I believe it requires some special practice, if not knowledge.
Very good. Yes, absolutely it is. It's so hard to get other people's feeling. And I can just say, be empathetic and walk away, right? Yeah. But I think that is a $1 million problem to solve. If somebody gives a strong tool that you can be empathetic, which means I have to feel. If I have to feel like you, I have to become you. which means I
Right.
have to lose my identity.
Right.
I have to lose who I am to feel as you are feeling. Right? Let's say you are scared of a spider. Okay.
Right.
And I am a guy who does treks in the jungle.
Right.
I see snakes at close quarters. I will never feel what you are feeling.
Right. Right.
So I have to let go of my experiences of trekking, all that thing. I have to drop it completely and then look at that spider through Deepak's eyes.
Right.
I think it's next to impossible.
Well, I can actually relate to it. I just some incident came to my mind. So we as a team we went for an adventure sort of a camp, and we had this rappelling down, and and rappelling, maybe it's maybe 50 feet or something. So it's 50 feet is quite high, means you can definitely die out of there, right? So
Yeah.
it's not right. So for 50 feet height, if you're just going to rappel down with a rope and some safety with it, I could not imagine if somebody would. I felt this is okay. I'm also scared of height, but I said I will psych myself into state. Okay, I'm not scared of it anymore, and then I actually rappelled down. And so I had this one team member who was like mortally afraid of heights, and I could not for the life of me understand how can you be so scared that you can't even look at the over the edge. So we actually got him ready thrice, but then I realized, I said, this person cannot do it. I cannot even imagine what he's going through in his mind when he goes over that edge, right? So it took me a while to understand, and a lot of aggravation to that person, because we are trying to literally push him. So I feel that some way it is that situation. You're trying to push somebody over the edge, and they are so scared of that edge, and they cannot understand why I'm doing this, right? And then finally you have to understand.
I think that what you just said actually has a clue to the challenge that we are facing, right? When we kind of say that the other person is being silly or stupid, when that thought comes in our mind, right? I think that's a good indicator that we can spot,
Yes.
right? When we kind of say, it's so obvious, what is your problem in life?
Right.
Kind of a thought that comes, right? What's the big deal, man? Come on, there is a strap tied to it, there's a safety buckle, there's an instructor holding it, there are 3 guys standing below trying to catch your fall. What is your problem in life? Why just can't you just step over, right? What's wrong with you? Now, when we hear these sentences, that is the clue to say we are not getting the feelings on that side. At least we can reach that level to say, I am not getting the feelings. I am matching the zeitgeist.
Right.
Then probably at that time we will have to stop what we are doing, and instead of being in an actioning mode, we have to switch to a understanding mode at that point, and do some questioning with real curiosity, which I keep talking about, right? Instead of being judgmental and saying, what kind of an idiot are you? Why are you being so adamant? Why are you being so stupid? Okay. And in fact, I'm not asking a question when I'm telling that. I'm actually making a statement. Don't be an arrogant ass. Move. Don't be so stagnant. So instead of that, probably switching to a curiosity mode can actually give us some insights. And it's hard for people to express. So maybe in your case, it would be easy to identify that the person is scared.
Right.
But in a corporate scenario, when somebody has to give an approval to a decision, the senior director is not going to say that, I'm scared, so I won't give you approval. You just can't do it in a corporate environment.
Right. So what are the indications there? What are the indications in the corporate world where people can identify and apply this principle of storifying the data which is relevant to the decision makers?
I think it's the first thing is it has to go in multiple iterations, right? First you present a fact, conventional way, right? And then you don't see the person giving approval. You ask him why.
Yeah, cool.
They ask, yeah, Nishant.
One doubt. When we say about this storytelling especially for a purely technical or new architecture stuff that we want to present to a common audience, and they should ideally relate to the real world scenarios or what exact benefits that we are getting in a layman's language. So one of my doubt is like how long or what should be the duration of such a session, because what I'm thinking, what I'm relating to this is like say we can, as you shown the slide, like Steve Jobs mentioned, that battery capacity, he using that particular presentation and that one liner, like
Correct.
streaming the video throughout the journey from one point to that destination. I mean, what is narrated to San Francisco. So after that, anyway, I have to continue my session, right? I have to go detail into the how I exactly achieved this and the technical aspects and other things. So there also, do we have to apply this storytelling things? Or my question is whether it would be like a movie, which the intro was quite good, but the later session was later things was quite dragging, and the audience is on with that.
Actually, that's a great question. The moment you have this question in your mind, right, I think you have solved half the problem. As technologists, we just say, I will present all the data, and the end of it, the audience will be happy. We go with that mindset. Now, what you have got to is a perfect mindset, right? I have to tell a story.
Yeah.
Now, do I have to tell the details? If so, to what extent without they getting bored? Now, we reach that point, I think you are in a good place to start doing this.
So you are saying like that should be our objective, correct?
Correct. See,
Yeah, okay.
and also it it depends on the audience. So here he is talking to the end customers. They need not know the nitty-gritty details. In fact, if you take the battery thing, right, the cellular providers need not know it. Right? The end customers need not know it. The sales channel partners need not know it. Even the application developers need not know it. The only person who needs to know the details of that battery is probably going to be the hard power supply manufacturing team within Apple, which is a very small segment. Beyond that, nobody needs to know any fact about what is about the battery.
Yeah.
Correct? So I think
Kumaran, I think that's a very important point. Like when we have to present something to an audience, the most important things we should understand is the combination of that. I mean, who are presenting to attend that session. That's an important point before making the deck or anything, or what we are going to present. That decision is purely based on the audience, right?
Very brilliant point. Absolutely. And I think
But that is a bigger failure. I think nowadays we are seeing in these industries, like we always have a standard stuff to present.
Yes, correct. I was about to tell that. You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, even this one of the scenario that actually recently I just in our project, what happened is like our VP had a presentation about our vision, product vision, to the CEO or the CXO. I mean, and what happened is like we had a town hall meeting, and he came with the same presentation, same deck, and presented that things to the entire employees in our project. So finally, what I realized, and after that session, at least I could relate some of the point, because so many terminologies was quite familiar to me. But what I was thinking that during the presentation, whether this would create any indication to the juniors or the most of the attendees in this meeting. And later, actually, when I talked to confirm my thought, actually I had a chit chat with a few of my junior members in my team, and they said like they were just asking me the basic questions from that session. Actually, they didn't get nothing from that session. What happened is he just presented the same PPT or the same deck he presented to the CEO, and the investors, they got actually excited with the future vision and the earnings and the EBITDA and the revenue, those kind of things. And he tried to present the same thing to the other audience also. There it failed.
Perfect. So that's a good thing. I think we are at time. We have to switch. Okay. We'll have to do that. But no. Perfect, Nishant. But I'm just curious, right? Like, let's say you just talked about that EBITDA thing, right? So let's just try that. Let's just try this as an exercise. EBITDA, profitability, like that, right? Now, obviously, to anybody below 10 years of experience, they don't understand this.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say you made great EBITDA or great margins. How can it be made relevant to a fresher? Something like, if we just say, there's a good chance that next year you guys will get hike because we are profitable.
Yes, yes.
Right? There's a great possibility. Or there is a bonus waiting if we make, or they just have to say, if the profitability increases by 10%, there is a chance that I can give you all a bonus. Right? Or it can be something like, maybe all of you can go for a great vacation to a nearby hill station. If we do,
that is vague enough for not committing something.
correct. A story can be that, no? The
Yes,
story
yes.
gives you the ability to do that. So I think that's what you bought about is a great point. I think it was a beautiful discussion, and to kind of summarize, I think it's about the audience, where they come from, what they feel, and storification is nothing but converting a data which appeals to the emotions and feelings of the audience that we are working. And I think more architects can do that. We could possibly have more beautiful solutions that's coming to life.
And I think architects need to study a little bit of marketing. I think this whole concept of getting to the feelings is comes from marketing and advertising, right? Because all of them are there focusing on that itself. And maybe architecture can learn something from the advertising and marketing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's true.
Thanks for joining Deepak and Nishant. It was a great discussion.